koso nansen a neocolonialism no sa enisuo na ye di eso but ye use strategic projects, strategic laws, strategic implementation, strategic loans no nebra eso ebra no aso mop up na ekoso hit na ekoso ewa African leadership no mu no hit na ekoso na started bo abrofo no I started any the Western powers no struggles na started but in fact sabi before your leaders no say so mu kasa bonsa abrofo no do mu say sumoma no in fact it takes them by surprise said they na bibi an African leader wobako summit anasa wobeko program bi no kwatira si jobi anasa wode speech ebekuta de nsem no ba bekenkan speech no yo na abrofo no hu so oh say ye da so ekuta form ye da so ekuta nkofo we mu enkofo we de still a omuntimi nkasa yanim enkofo we oh still a enkoyie enkofo we still a no ye bua wo mu so ya kata wo mu so sasa bi otafra che ya che kokko ne de kenten abutu no nanso nansen abibi man panimfuo bebre na ahu wonjina bre bebre na ji atuma me ahunu say they are so much ready for the liberation of the African continent that womun nya no womun mai mun ko ana womun kan TV so nko a ana yanka na yase ase te say ya just political biblical speech no dabi say no they are taking the bull by the horn. African leaders be in fact we must cycle omo am agene no the way as agene sia picking o makiko omo ho bom na omo di first year brofo no squarely no udi akira utimi hu say oh Africa say they are bre enough is enough. One say obitimi chewo ya ayakayaka dia sa obitimi ya yakayaka dia sa at some point so obeya ye ufiri ya ye mewu anka mewu enti obeya ye nam so menya dia mepe. One say utimi che akoda na o punish na utimi punish akoda bi in a certain way bi na bada na abuse sa abuse no kwasoro a wo be punish no kra wo nsuro wo ba abuse aba abuse no kra wo nsuro if is a etino why you ready to receive bibi biara wo pesa ode ba bia no why you ready sesi bibi man panyimfo binum utumi hu so my ready o madwemu o my ready o mu widie mu o my ready o makomam o my ready ene o manam ntuo o my ready say anya dia said the African unity no and the African independence no betotonas eba ne sen ena nkomo we ehu abamfaso nansen ya ena French mampani Owura Macron offer summit the Paris summit amahodo mpanimfo ekobi amampanyin anado danko akufado no wo ho amampanyin Bola Tinubu of Nigeria wo ho amampanyin William Ruto Kenya wo ho amampanyin Cyril Ramaphosa South Africa wo ho abibima mpanimfo mu bebre ana omokohia summit no na summit no nyina is about climate change na summit no koso na no ena abibima mpanimfo no so da bi anamo ye tuo na ene no sa na mo no esese ya kana brofie o mahia mu wa ha wo Paris no esese o muti ase se ya ntena ho te se de ye nananom tena ho no ya nya ready se be mama fa ye nunum enti niema mienu na mepeke afiri nkoma ekọ ho no de di kan pa eye masem tire kese pa ye se Cyril Ramaphosa wono no eye president edema South Africa a wonne amampanimfo bi ka mo hubo mu edi peace talk ekọ Kiev Ukraine edi bi ko Moscow Russia last week Thursday yedi hu nkomo emehu ahohiehia mu ko mu ene niam mu makoye asabio enam kwan so ede ma ceasefire any peace talks ekoso ewo Ukraine and Russia ntokwa no based on African panimfo wo mana montuo no ntokwa no brasin kakran kakra Yempany Africa penny for. I don't know what you know. I know what summit in no Mr. Debbie. I dear be one. As a brofono, I have for you no more huntias, ya tenta sukoko no go many pepe, no more say any abbe. Na say in Africa, no, and as a bibi mino. Yes, why a home, yes, why a home, but dear home. Into necessary omu, at say, yeah, yas restrefo. Enti Cyril Ramaphosa, South African president, the member of the BRICS. Ebraso so Bekasano, ono Jenny microphone. Wajeni microphone or say ya damase. Some more summit na bibi man so mafra ya me baby. Frada mafra ya ne dia yaba. Enkomo na modi aba say ya di ni di ebedi. Na emomu no. Sania ya ba besia ko Russia and Ukraine. Akwakodi nkomo about how the war affected the African economy now. Eya mo say ya ko honom say ko pa cha akope bibi no. Hey muntie ni anka nkyere mo. Ya bibi man ya nya srasrafo ya de ho ya wo bi ya ni ho no mo ni bi ya mamu bia mu nya bi. In fact aya niam bi ane ensa ba shamanum o ano no nso kra no ya gusu a ye yi ensa de afiri manum enti ne aka ne pain ade a kira mo wo Paris ha no mo pain say a bibi man one ya kan ho abom two ye tredi ana tre eni ma na modemaya no a mode bedada ya na asa mode behwia ye de koro sese ye ni ada ho no mu ntino sese ya na monto ye babetu asa bibiman no se ya na mo betena se mo mtim meka sa nkyere ya mesese bo hunu anka de mo pemfa nkyere ya me nsore nkwa wa bra ye nka bi mamo enkyere mo opanyini kasa no na mpanyimfo a ewo bedwa na se nyina obiara ye di obiara nim at a surprise. Obia was surprised the way the African leader was speaking. If he say, "Empanyimfo ni hia saa no moko summit ne ade na." Who was the African leader no? Oba no atwe paper. What kind of speech na wa kire wie na no ano no. Papa yi speech bia na nanim no kan. Won hwe screen bia so. And once we born adwen e de mampanyimfo adwen na wo bo no enye adwen say wokotena se na saade ne ba yo. No, it is coming out of certain critical strategic steps African leaders who must still move to liberate the Africa of its trade and economy, to liberate the Africa of its independence and unionship. Into when yes what na say no so man make sure say me make news there be and near be koso a bibi mamu a sabiota fracha ya meton kroma no nanso that kind of colonialism no enu ni honu bio ene de ne different into ene steps na e betake de eba je ho eba de ho afra brofo no nsam no anu so akoye different eno ena sesei empanimfo e wo Africa no akọ mo ho abomu a omudi so kakra enti Cyril Ramaphosa ne nkomo anu odi e wa summit na se Africa for yenya burgers no tie na utie no me pacho nyabotre ne take note ehun hie nti na me body ama o ene be ma asem na si asem so ama yente asem so abaye ewa nkomo no yengotie Cyril Ramaphosa.
They plan to go and live on Mars. We do not have a choice. And I hope that this convocation and conversation can take place within the next 4 to 8 weeks. We cannot go to the world's population again making promises and yet saying that this is the most urgent problem facing mankind.
Straight to that.
Thank you very much, Macron, and thank you for daring to call us to this meeting. I'm told it was How Dare You conference. But in any case, we are here. Let me just speak to this in two ways. Number one, I have had my sister...
Unless there is a plan to go and live on Mars, we do not have a choice. And I hope that this convocation and conversation can take place within the next 4 to 8 weeks. We cannot go to the world's population again making promises and yet saying that this is the most urgent problem facing mankind.
Straight that Africa should never be seen as a continent that needs generosity.
This is the most urgent facing mankind.
Straight that Africa should never be seen as a continent that needs generosity. We want to be treated as equals.
We cannot achieve what we want to achieve if we allow our global community to focus time, resources, everything, technology, on conflict. I think there's a duty for us all to keep our individual countries peaceful, out of conflict, and not export instability to other countries, neighboring or far away.
That Africa should never be seen as a continent that needs generosity. We want to be treated as equals.
We cannot achieve what we want to achieve if we allow our global community to focus time, resources, everything, technology, on conflict. I think there's a duty for us all to keep our individual countries peaceful, out of conflict, and not export instability to other countries, neighboring or far away.
Right. Enti kasano ewo wapa nchichemu bebree ewom. Ebre ntino menje bre mfanto breso na menka de ewom ncho. Omukọ summit no. So hu the way Africa empanifo ne kasa say yenya beggars. Ohun abrafo nanim. Ohun the way no manim sitie. Omai shocked. Na kwa we oye hwan. Enya bibifo man panyin ni bi na ekasa yi. Na enya nkofo we se ni akiro musa mo ba mo nto santene emfa mungu baase mo no. Na mo firi hefa na enya de afedia mo beka mo bo so asem de akire ye se mo nya asrefo. Na enya mo na da bia ye bre musika no. Enya mo na da bia mo ba ha beje bosia no. Mo wure fi se ye de sese ye sesa. Anasese bio empanyimfo se obakwase na nsesa na adwen. Enti no mo wure fi se ye de wadwen de trim as Africans. Mo wure fi se enema na ekoso no entwa yie no e affect your economy no. Mo wure fi se ye de ho bedo mo na ye ne mo nantibom na mo bu ye kwase no. Mo wure fi se bi otafra chenim de ekoso nti yen ya ye de akire Yesu anyansa. Wo mo wure fi se yene ebabu no ene mpanyimfo kakra o modi mficha aduosia kɔ no wo mo hu independence no before independence, during independence, we must stay in democratic dispensation, we must stay in coup d'etats and other things, you know. Nyansa emaye experience nyamaye intino said the no westerners no panel no African will be the puppet. The African leaders are always puppet. Not just say you can't know this so your frawa no just so yes sir. Over submit time for our journey ma the ya church the amount no beka no and I said the expert so baba can e be ma ye ya ba ji watum ye be hu so ya down for no eno na beka. Brother be compromise ho eno na ye hwehwe the free African leaders no. Yes etesa no cry African leaders no be ebra bi atwa mu no akwa summit akese in fact summit ni bu honum kwan ye frawo na so we African leader no amakwa betwe waso summit no awubu man awu sika wo as a president who to kwan ya be spend from the state conference enye sika ketwa aya na mo kasa se bi otafra che o mampanyimfo no o mo pan o mo tutu kwan rough etoda ya invite o mampanyi so o mra no o tu ne na eyi ne na sempa bo de show bi no kwa ya se da bi ya ne sa nipa we ni nkomo ya hwehwe mampanyi na nkasa wa ma ya be chekere tabon ya be chekere sobo bi ya be chekere asem bi na ya de ato so me say that is what is happening. And William Ruto said it in a speech in South Africa. So we are African leader. You are born in Hanamo, the church. So we are African leader. Now you are fraud for summit. Now one call summit. Now but one so. Identity and a sovereign state. Sovereign state. So what do we need to say? UN, United Nations. When you're sovereign state, I want to be a member of the United States. Sovereign state, as yet the same. Or Maya would do Hosua, sovereign. Or Maya would do Hosua. It's not even independence. Sovereign would do Hosua. You govern yourself. You handle yourself. No, Maya, we are sovereign state. We did a Hosua. I want a mra. I want a setna. I want a quarter. I could an economy. No, at the end of the day, no. Sa or mine, no. Emu penny pa no. So what to inside the frano? No, I said my busy. Me shame me mind. My busy. Me economy no. As I said me shame. My busy. As I said me ya coin. My busy. As I said me shame quarter. My busy. As I said me shame schools. My busy creating jobs. At the amount me for no be tene more culture says one mammy me chwaso. Now, you know what I'm saying? I'm being. You know what I'm saying? And I'm being. Sir. Yaton sadia from mampani bi so omra ne media no bae no mampani no according to one on a schedule awo ewo dada according to ni dwumadie no woni mra awodi beja the management of his or her economy na wodi aba da ban ya tesa obi aton sadia from French mampani na French mampani se onya ho famba no obi aton kra dia kokobo French mampani se wa ma meche waso. It's neither here nor there. Sabi Jafracha, Ghana Mampanya Dine, Nidibia Sotesame Diana, Ghana Mampany Yakra, Africa Mampany be Yakra na. The Dibia as a president, cannot be underestimated. No president in this world can be underestimated. Nobody is allowed, should be allowed, and would be allowed to underestimate any president in any country, in any continent. But why is the African president, why are the leaders in Africa underestimated? If it's a beggar doesn't have a choice, beggar only choice. Enti beggar any choice in intino. Beggar no penny pa no. Ya Ghana for ya beggars no. Ya Africa for ya beggars no. Ya obi person near din koma. It's a one economic team ni bedin komodo. It's a one ECOWAS team ni bedin komodo. Also there be small boys we me do mu yede. Me here man penny for na nkasa. Mo famra. Na sa wo ya man penny bi ewa bibiman mu na ma ton sa dia from say for private jet bra. For usika na wababo se o me hono for be for private jet e for bra never security apparatus can ho na spend the millions of your currency never bra one day summit na say wa ma metwe so all because the African is a beggar. The African go to Europe to beg, the one with the highest greatest resources goes to beg from the one who doesn't have, and the one who doesn't have makes it a point to ensure that Obaka baby out here. The one who doesn't have, the strategy ni na ene mo che. Yadi sua de e de sanso e de aya asama to hodom se be ya wo chena bi no. Edu ye so a ye behu enipa ye no mu dili. Hwe. Se omo ko sia sa na sika bi ba na se omo cha. Woni bibi. The African continent has a greater number than the European. You don't see omo bebre. What I say? But since you can't hear chaba no mucha no, omucha omunya more, na ye nya less. Tienie. Sikano, omako summit na, omucha na omu ba becheche no. The European countries, the Western countries, they're already developed countries. They get more than the countries that actually need resources. And be mine, ahodwa ye here, sanka, ye benya sikabi, edi aso ye nsika so, edi aso ya ho aden so, ye mom ni enya ketwa, na hwade enso ho a, ye nya ketwa na wie no, obakira ode fa koye. Wacha ode ode ba koye wie a, no wasanso atira o company kura. For contract in the manner. bosia nso so ensi ho ubetua sika na wo mu checha no de wo pa ebeson e de aba wo man no ho bra no unya kakra na ye de ama wo no ye say ye chira wo de ye pesa wo de koye entu wuntimi decide de wo pesa wo de ye e wo wankasa wo man mu eno na ti no se wo ba ya de ko na wo mu chira wo na emfa ma wo man fo de nye ye chira wo enipa anasa dwumaku a esesa wo de sa contract no emomu na ya chira wo the quarter wo ha mu titamu ebi adu edunum ebi adiasa se no na ye slaughter ye de amawa wo be fa wo my for amo mo didwuma e wo sa contract no tienie eno no ti no ni asa ka cha o sai esansa ye bosia ye de bo awunti no ye pese ye wrane adekro no e wo man ni mu kopem say ye bete ye ka no ansa na ejai e de ama oh ya koche sika ay ye bosia minu aba ako ne hoto no wo mam ye nupe ana ne ho san so to no ana minu aba ako e wo madu ana ne ho san so nto no enti ye che sika na ye bosia no mini abako na wo mamienu na ne hoto no ana me ma ne kese tie ana bako na wo madu na ne ho sa kire no me ma ne ketwa na beta dia me ma ne kese na ja sai ketwa no won fanya juma specific ajuma we sa specific ajuma no won fa juma no contract no e specific individual or group we eno na ti no ansa na menua no wo betimi de ne manumu ba ku mienu miensa abehemu no just amema determine e de ama no sika na me de ma no eye bosia ensi ho ho menua ne betua na woni bibi esa isa sika ni so wa re entimi nya adwuma ni nyina nkosi na masa de me ankasa me company ne me workers aba sika ni bi sa de akono na ma hu se me nuane ntimi ntua no me pesa me bo me de ho ban kakara aka no me pesa me bo ho ban sa de ba ya me nuane hu me mre bia obema me anidie na me ne di ankomo bia ode na so ebema me enti no company no ana industry no sector kro no me say yenya no public private partnership ana say yenya no insane na chese ye yaba ni enemo ediso enti 20 years na wodi betu aka no 20 years no ye ne minua na woni bia ne ho kire na wo woni pa bebre na ye ma ne sika ketwa ensi ho obesa so aye aye ne asa baje adwuma na ye na ye adwuma na wie no ye ne asa se ye be rane ade no ye rane wie na di 20 years a ne ejai dia ma minua no enti ye be di 20 years no emfidie na de ba ni nyina na ye mre meso mo man bela kwa ni bi wai ensu kroje no munyi bi mfa mame na me mfa nya ma ade enti fa de chemu sam no to so mame na me nje bela kwa na me mfa nya ma ade ya ade bi a no mo boaye ewo ho enti ncha bela kwa no kama Family na min chabela kwa no. Come up here. Nsupani. Me se me ya mo mfansi machi. Ti me dane me ho na mafa. Cause Bella kwa de, I am a partner in anything I do. Obochidom. Menom Lucky Herba Nupano. Na me call Lucky Herba hospitals no. Na me die up guest house. mesre me dia jeje me ho no na bela kwanso mma me nsupa no juma pa nyenhyemu kena entity wapa na wonim so wasaje sika ni nyina de akono was okay me no baba running company no ti running dru emfie dodo say ya na magya de ama ho nti bedi 20 years no emfidie na ye dada industry na ye dada system inflation aba dollar exchange rate aba say demand and supply ni nyina asesa by that time no organization no I build it from the grassroots. I hit its peak, diminishing returns. Economists for motimase. In fact, what has happened? I can say one shall be soon. Diminishing returns. As actually that particular idea, until at the end of the day, no answer the bed jemu dia sama na abeye ka esansu siu so abeye oyede just say adena agije egu na stella woda so de ne ka won sada so hye nanum na oni bibi hwe say Europe any west ekwaje bosen a anaso mu chiche scanner the interest no Africa 8 times 8 the interest I demand Europeans yankotie William Ruto Kenyan president the next president of Africa yankonkotie ne nkomo William Ruto nkomo ne mfa mame why to oteme nka bo nkomo ne mame na mfa nso so
Number one, I have had my sister Kristalina and Bangra, and we have excellent relations with the World Bank and IMF from Kenya, and these people have been incredibly of assistance, and we sincerely appreciate. But I am also aware that both Kristalina and Bangra have a job to do, and they have people they report to, called shareholders, and they don't have the final word. The final word rests with somebody else. And that is why we are almost all of us speaking the same language, because we seem to be on the same corner. There are people who are not sitting here, yet they call the shots. Now, we have a situation, and let me speak from the perspective of Kenya, our continent in Africa, and the global south. We need emergency liquidity. We need debt relief. We need urgently new money, with urgency, with scale. That's our situation. How are we going to get that in the current situation? Listening to Guterres this morning, we get development resources 8 times more expensively than others. We have inadequate resources, and it takes forever to access it. So, how do we, how do we make meaning of this summit that my brother Emmanuel has put together? Our position is that if you want to get debt relief, emergency liquidity, and new money together, let us live here having agreed on one thing, that, like Guterres has said, let's look for 500 billion new money. But if we are going to distribute it the way we did SDR, we will end up with nothing. SDR, we ended up with $33 billion in our continent of 1.2 billion people. Europe, with 450 million people, ended up with 5 times what we got. You heard it this morning, not from me, from the UN Secretary General that we got 13 times less as Africans as compared to Europeans, because the whole architecture, and by the way, it was fair by the architecture, the current architecture of the financial system. But it is grossly unfair when you are looking at fairness. So, what are we saying? Our position, good people, is we do the following. Let us agree that the money we are supposed to pay for the next 10 years as repayment of debt, let us convert it into a new loan that is 50-year loan with 20-year grace period, so that you don't have a problem with your AAA rating. You can continue to have the AAA rating, but you don't have a problem with your shareholders because you haven't given away any money. You've just changed the structure, and we get both liquidity, we get it urgently, and we can develop our countries. For Kenya, for example, we pay $10 billion every year to service our debts. If I had $10 billion every year for development in Kenya, instead of paying debt, it would make a huge difference. That's all we're asking. We're saying, let's have something that is practical so that we live here.
Right. Enti sikana omukọ akọcha no. Omukọ kocha no omukọ ji sikana. Africa for ni nya 13 times less. The ewiase foforo ni nya no. Na woni bibi, ye twa so ye twa no 8 times more than aman foforo de omunya. Oh, unya ntemase. Unya hu ba bia me firi ba. Unya hu nkomo no. Wo hu nkomo no. Wo hu nkomo na di nkomo na chi. Yama less, no what you more. Yama less, no what you more. Yama less, I would you more. No, na. Yes, I'm so bad. Juma na sasan ka o my for ye. Emma ko ni no. Yes, I'm so bad. Free o my for ni nsem. Until the end of the year, no. Kenya get $10 billion. Edi tuaka. Na sanka $10 billion every year, no. Ate Kenyan economy ni mu a. Radio, yako IMF skasa na koje. $3 million. 3 billion. $3 billion. And a koja wa IMF. Afibia no sikadudu wa Ghana ye tua sa ayeka ye de kwa kotua kan emburu $3 billion no. Sabro $3 billion no. Sabro $3 billion ne dia. Se Kenya eko IMF na se Kenya benya $3 billion pe. Na the country wono at the end of every year eka wo tua ade ama Europeans no ensi hu na do so ewo mu Europeans na sababa benefit wo ma enjoy from that same money now wo mu dia maye ade aba Africa no wo mu dia aba je resources no at the end of the day in a year African countries etuaka more than sika yenya, because $10 billion, so $3 billion will rescue the economy of Ghana. That is $10 billion will do so much for the economy of Ghana. Now so Brunino epese mrebia oba jepo sen bisa kan said ye beya on sabahye nanum on sakwahye nanum a wontumi enkasa ma ho wontumi didi ma ho wontumi njere ma ho wontumi mobra e ma ho jesa waka and asabio tafrache African business is our business. Said empanimfo na di kan kan we de o ma pa mu kan and ya tell if you see a man panimfo ni nyina say Africa e bibi man your business ye dia oba panya kan Sarah of force and so the abasa Africans say why hu bibi ya why hu sika ya boy hu bra enti no ma unyam e mane nyam adwen say motaku ne mu sempo na ye nananom ene mpanyimfo bi ababa bejeje no yen ya this crop of leadership no e mane nyam so betimi na faye no num ana so betimi na toye. At the end of the day, we are not beggars. And I say, someone boy a pa dia and you munte de William Ruto Ekan. Or say, Bosiana my boy no. And who si who no and you know, yanka someone franchise, but Sikana you try the mamo, Afibiano, and you more than Sikana ya besre Afibiano. And you know, Sunday Easter San Kametra $10 billion, and the amount Afibiano. Salve alone me. What I say, and for interest be unto so, but interest now, for no more mammy, and mammy loan for no more mammy, if it's also poor me. And to poor me, nothing to mean to coming home through one. For Bakuna one and mammy. Now, me talk 10 billion every year, beer, and to me brought 10 billion every year, beer, not till 10 billion every year. Ghana goes to IMF every 3-6 years for 3 billion. What 3 billion? In a year now, what 3 billion? Utia was 10 billion. Until we train now, what significant would it make? What impact is it going to make on the economy when you're paying more? Intino, when you know, a kikambo, as I said, me no. Obi biara wo bibima mu ha ode na adwen ode na koma ode ne bibia bedi akire na eye abibiman ye nkamom abam obi busam say na mampanyin na na dan kwakufo de okoy okasen okan yankam de brel tie anya kan wantumi anka bio anya kan wantumi anka bi na Ghana, there were certain bilateral relationships with USA. Into Kasan was show who ye. Asemwa making a asema making a dagwa na sabiota frache. O unyabra, what you mushimu. Intino, or Mampani Kobe, or Ankabi. The Omukasa Africa, as I said, dear honey, I didn't know. Ninjinano, as I said, observe that was the right thing to do. If we say, yet I economic sanction, crown, you who no sounds like economic sanction, arbitrary. If we say, and commono, equasono, papa, among for bebre, ebon by say, yamon home. If we say, commona was I said, one way and not Gaddafi, Abem. One way and Nkrumah Abem. One way and Museveni Abem. One way and Wenitia. Series. Obi bano bejina na so no ye na ade. Never one in mind. Ever boy bibi maya. There be wrong. Intino. Rutoi. Ramaphosa. Museveni. Akufo-Addo. Bobo Mudin. A current crop of African leaders who are swinging or moving straight to the independence of the African continent. You know. Or Masati Pace, you know, who say they able to me a Kassam. That be man penny for us to take Kassam. And think, young Mabuno and Crane, dear Cheno, Yensia, dear, Yensia Nantia, Yensia Nimdia, near to me Kassam. If it's a baby, I do know, a Kassa, any meeting, a Nimdia, and a de Quacocon, young first a two, young fair dine. Nimdia na sase de bako enti se de nimdia de bako a esase etimi ahwehwe nimdia no nimdia na ya hwehwe no esase nimdia ebeboa ye enye obi nimdia enye nimdia ebeba be market obi de akere me esase ye nimdia ebe market me ho e de akere me ho esase ya adwene at the end of the day no enye obi na be benefit ye ene be benefit enkomo akokoso Ankomo gusu koso Africa trade unit no barriers no omugusu epejepeja ekekabo muba Congo be fan cobalt Congo be fan resources Uganda be fan resources Ghana befane resources, South Africa befane resources, Rwanda befane resources, Kigali befane resources. Tese, the African countries will rely on the African resource to produce finished goods and obia woni bi no ebaba betobi. And yes, African university no de akwakomo obia woni bi no na ye no sa de aba ne akwaje posen wona ho no de nsuhu asi ho ne sa de akwakoto hwe ade bi siye na ne won komo bim ba akɔhye baabi amentwe wa agye maso na memie phone lines no na eni nkomo radio covid baaye no covid-19 baaye no na ye ton covid aduro no ewa adwama so $12. $12. Ghana ye ton between $19 to $21. I'm not sure the reason involved. Sure. Ebre na buy no. Me kwa betina na den tina ye the contract no come shake arm too. Ewo Dubai. No mom na kwa koto covid aduro e de abreye. Aden Ghana mine ye ntimi koto covid aduro ana. Ma me no nche secret. Niembie phone lines in front. Sure. COVID the drone, omuya researcher, omu say, you bet me use no. And a West no, any developed countries no, omuto ni na. Till woman shut down Tony na keken so. They prevented. Womu si kwan say, you beton COVID the drone, especially at the Africans. Oh, it is public knowledge. Kone ko gugu na hasa meboa. Dabio, and yes, I be tafrata will be a job baby, a political analysis. So, why I am my mum paying for the beer casa and no kind of plane. Sir, COVID bedroom, and no, not abraphonum perceive tone, no be the amaya. And yes, sir, yeah, quite slow. You won't tone. Oh, on Tessie. Otasion, and Tiancasa. Ya quacoto, ya tisica. E de koto COVID the drone de bre Ghana for. Ya tisika koto COVID the drone de bre South Africa for. What tisika koto COVID the drone de ma Kenya for. What tisika koto COVID the drone ya see anton my e be before. Now say you COVID the betwa mu ya 2012 2022 ya. COVID point blank yan ton my e. Entino na cha say man mu mpanyimfo no bi asese omo fa different strategy na individuals bi a omo betimi anya ade no aba beton ma enti na Ghana ye ton na boden no if is an abrafo no I ready say ye de yengu ni enko COVID ne hye ase ye hu hia edu COVID no ehu aduru aba no ye hu hia nanso edu so person o legalize gay dia ye hu hia. E do say there one person we see can kosoro we nya raw materials there ya ho hia koto de ne bodwe nya nkyere de emfa ba ba cho bi phone lines no tum ene Ghana for ni nkomo na yen nkomo to the liberation of Africa oneness yen ka ye homom na ye me no kan ye ho abobu no na ebi sita de koma Raymond if Raymond so na call pare if pare so na call Dave if Dave so na call Max if Max so na call Bauer if Bauer so na call Comfort if Comfort so na call Letitia if one na call Accounts Collins if one na call na to say en kabom na sase is burning 0544 0551 474 745 and 0302 958-894. Na ye nim komo. Me so mama me whatsapp phone. Na ye nim komo. Sadie Africa no. Empanyimfo na sorry. Now mu make sure say Africa no be ko nanim. Africa no be jira ne naso. Africa no be kan ho abom. Africa no be stronger. Africa no onye bigger. Now the business of Africa will belong to Africa. Your income. Said you will be. Ejiji loan. Yaba Africa no honum. Yakodi akokosia. Na ye nyina yema ye bosia. Na mo de mo banya bosia ni mu kese pa. munya kese pa ni wi a mo san so ebetua mu kakra bi wotua kakra bi no meme the African no me so mesatua mo ya wi a kakra na wode ma me no abehye mrato me ho so say menyi turumu tuntum ansana wotimi ne makasa wo behye mrato me so say mema sabio tafrache eja ene ne ba enware ansana wo ne matra se ehu se me nyansani mema eja ena ene oba omunkom hu momfom ho that is queer ye ka queer na se kire no se papa be fa ne ba yanko ahoma no so udi ni ba bi akasa free
Ada wo fa me na no over me na di se
opanyi yeti wa no pe
yo o ne se atama yetani gusu kasai ya dia accept sepa edao osankafu kusi eko kika kasere so tama wule Bible mother say Africans will more than that eti so man fa Bible ambabe that ambe na which in ya so far so in now we own eti what the buy and what said that the better guy I must see what said that and then what said that there is years eti ya that okay you know the next best mama on the back of me said now nana akata TV so often
all right
now what is that assembly of the sad life in the man and how the other two I'm for crying now
that's ya nkomo no yegusu ayedi na de okan so kire sa manfo so di nkomo no enti Africa no ho nkomo no eno an yegusu ayedi no sabiota frache yentu nete mfa ngu wani da pese wonya ntiase nya hunumu information e pese ben wo now sorry say Africa unity number fa hojimu a wodo ho ajimu bi now this time around it's not about arms, it's not about the military, it's about knowledge adreno obi wa homa no so udi ani ba bi akasa free.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
FM Dr. Emmanuel Ekasa free Akem Swedro sitting region.
Doc you no pay.
LGBTQ asemu na meka aka sene Bible ne de omo de baba be dada ankasa se Bible no mo ka sa asem ne wo enum no bi e free se be ma no oba dai ana se oba ne be ma ne nyonko be ma dai na yakopon se sa asem ne nyina ye se ma no mo de omo ka de atu o se be ya ye be hu se ne yeso ye beye ya mamre mu no enimu sa eni kwan se yeso se ne ma no so ye man yi de ka se be so se ne ma no so ye man mu na se ye man ne ye se ne enye o kira na be se ne ya di na ya dia tum na ekoso na ye se ye man ye se ne
right ya better say any wadwen chere 0551 7450302 958894 ubetumi enso ede WhatsApp any test no ede afa 0551555506 na yabajibre akenkan ede amount right yanko ma so obi wo so udin any ba bi akasa free
ya feme down so the constitution man was
you too
yo much media American say African leaders ni nyina no obi enu ma ono oba Africa yi di njirawo omu nyina agent e ma abrofo no o pa de leaders e di enu nyina omu nyina ko school Europe and agene de e wo se omu beye leaders ne de there is no single leader on accept so beye sa de no nemo mu na ka kwan ya o be fa so o metima influence yen na yemu accept wo mo. There's no political party or Ghana Hanomadic Bata say, on YouTube, what you do by book. But me, I can say, Ghana for me, or which may influence here. Those would mean that you say, yeah, did it somewhere, who built Ghana Hanoma, said here. Oman goes to Europe. anaasɛ ɔmoma anaa ɔmasefo bi da so te Ghana ha no mo ɔmaka nso nyinaa to ampo mu biebie no ro enti ɔmo de ɔmo yɛ abrɔfo dada wo na aka sɛ ɔmo mbom bi ba bɛwura yɛn a yɛnkɔ ɔkwan no bi na ɔmo de ama yɛn enti de ɔmo yɛ no deɛ yɛtwe mu taa ha yɛbɛgye atom wɔn so far aba hali the city yɛ no deɛ yɛbɛgye atom ɔmo bɛgye atom da that's it.
Openyi yeso yeda wase o messages no yeguso train 0551555506 or the test any WhatsApp ebe faso o frɛ na ano ayɛ na ontimi nya na so de odi afa text message na say WhatsApp na yagibre e de akenkan ama na 0551474745 0302 98 95885 894 na yentumi enim komo anopai ewo dwumadie so messages no okay yanko ahoma no so ansa udi any baby akasa free.
Hello,
good morning.
Your family quite you to Asante.
Openya Asante yeti anopai.
Me katafi Asante katem dampon.
Yeah.
The American say, "In any mufuo no, yensu sunu yempeni fuo no. Enna me ko strike market ya nye. Me fin say we gina wa okasa ti se ukofi na oba e the pressure to so se mi hia de ewe. One fa mama ya see na me ya. E kwan bia e so fa tunyande ma oba no. Obefa so. Nti eno ne ma yempanifuo no so no. E ba o mo se yen no mo ntimi enni so mfa ma yen. Nti se de wakatua etie bia no. Se de adwen to fom se ye ni se ya ye nyina ye die. Nti se de minya bia memfa ne saa na mpanifuo no so ndi nko wo mo anim a anka mfin se fensu so ye wuri e betimi aboaye. Na atem kakram
Ebeda se Openya Asante ene onkomo obi foforo ewa ahoma no so udin any baby akasa free.
Katapi no yin ben koko.
All right, you too.
Masem kakra ni se omne bi dia asidie no kase na gina o man panin poso. So me se nya tie de bia me akokra me di ba Beto ya mi bayansa ni independent ye bakra. Na akatia na se na pami kuma ni ye bini. Wona se ya da kama se tramu. Akatia ese do abwana se ye se o se ni pese anu. Ba bi gesha. What you am empty na pe ya ko ku sika bia da mi kra ko pe de mi ya bi so mi antini. Eti awon mo man de ya mo ni se o kakra ya so so la ni chiman won be dem bossa la ya se beso da no
da se opinion kese ene ofutu onkomo a wode abeso dwumadie so 0551474745 and 0302958894 na also timi afre akenkan no obetimi de asende de aba was 0551555506 na yetumi agebren so akenkan de ma mehwehwem mhwehwem enti enche bia no bekenkan ni nyina e de amamo oho wono a o send voice note ne de yesre obu ahoma no so dia ne baby akasa free. All right, me too.
Hello.
Yeah, hello. Would you baby akasa free?
Doctor, good morning.
Good morning.
Doctor, my mama say. Papa saying
Oba you too anope.
The doctor, I don't know if I have my game to na price. You pastor Ghana for your mind I tell you you can and see how much you mind. Now so you're going to today you must say your good would be a join or a mind so problem this hour. I'm not program here, my say, Mammy Raho. That's fine. Yama, you mean, quiet near my young, I beg me, dear, dear. I am an active Katama Kosho. Na Abba High, am I a minor, a two, am I a private? Na afei de yen de bia ye pɛ no ɔman foforo so ɔmo frɛ yɛn a yɛn so yɛ de kakra yi nya no yɛ de afɔ ɛno ba boa yɛn nti yɛ frɛ yɛn ma yɛn nkɔ yɛn nneɛma no ho na ɔmo nso mmoa ɔmo kakra ma yɛn no bi nta agosia no bɔ na de yɛn de yɛbɛtumi ayɛ no yɛn mmoa yɛn ho na du ba bia mo bɛboa yɛn so a na yɛn so yɛde yɛn bia aboa. That's why making your can say, Empire 94.
That's about him. Obi for our home, so Udin any baby or cassa free.
Hello?
Yeah, would any baby or cassa free?
Well, me and the
right, open you too.
Oh, the market is I'm a and coming for your mission, said, Tim came for the and then come to Pablo for not come with and come. If you want to go. But you have to go to by me, you by me. Some more at the no margin or most. So, yes, you're gonna for Nanka for your come. Then I don't have a for almost. Now, what is connected work from working on many parts to all temper that you be cut a friend. If there is convict match, wow, popping here as the Sayana. Yanka Sanka said, we bring Hana and I Jana for. For saying, I didn't say it after I didn't say when you want to. Yamana Bazania, because I am now, open it, can be a when you go more for you. Just when we are watching and Gadding and Kappa Paudi didn't name Abba. I think I would just get in after 10 of the yes, Mamoeta. Yes, 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 my idea. They would say, I can't wait, if I didn't have to work a winner or to be delayed in young Quabanaman. Then I will never be seen. Go something for the purpose of the purpose down near Manoton. Or more the accent. That's a Romuka from home, what to you into the or more genuine for no move. It's one of them, yes, I agree. Never point one who can no more and get every answer. Number 2 million money in copy. The answer will give you away for money. I am practicing one of them among the other boys.
That's it. Obi for our home, so Udi any baby or cassa free.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Udi any baby or
oh, Nipato. Dear Miss Letty, I can't say, yes, so more say, I'm 24 years old. Say, a butter, yes, so about at the moment, yes, so almost 10 years. You know, only at the camera, I almost know. Yes, so if you say some about that, you be there, and son, what you have or mine, and not a corner, and trust me. Now, I think so. I think that you take the big crack, and my new mum, you did to me, I you penny for me, and also a from. Get some to say, one more, you almost shall or mine, and my woman, Bruno. Every city to say, yes, my crying. Chapter he can call and the 7 year and look at you. How about I was why you wouldn't see how you thought it could be. Your church, I had Yakana to come. Be a bit young and less, be a bit young and snap. Yes, throw me. Yes, throw me. And you won't want to soon a cop to a very different. You won't be here. Yes, almost a while. Yes, so one fire, I am share. And we look at the brand new bomb. Your mind will get me a cost. Yes, almost show. Let me come out, come and say, you check. No, you can't get near you doing. That's maybe a boy and ma. That sounds so almost set your penny. Yet, the program of one many go far. Yamin strong the brain among Cotois. Yet, the Cotois.
Inshallah, sir, but that's a man. Last call our human so. Who didn't any baby I can say free?
I'm not watching. Now, make us a fee, a key region in Quanta.
Upon you, what?
A young, you went to nominate my family, you will not. Share Bema, enye bibia na ha abibiman o hwe efi kwame nkomambre so na wo ka sembi hwe na nka yesua ade no na nka yesua se yanka tanse bitumi aye wo yensa so a na nka enyi ni se yeda so ye enkwama aborofo yi o nemum yesua ade no na yesua wie kura na kyase mire bia no na kyase yenso na akwa te se yeda so ye den yeda so ye suafo na mum ye yentumi ye yensa so hwe mamemfa obi kura mfa nye mfanto e Ghana ha hwe aposo kojo safo nka e wo krodim e wo man papa yi hwenimdi na nyame edi ama no na empo Ghana ha nka senka Ghana aban biara obeba so nko betimi atwa na asen na nka papa yi etimi apagya nka embetimi aka se ada Africa sabrofo no kwantimi nkwa ma meto papa yi ne product kwa nka Africa countries no obegbo agura Ghana aba beto ama Ghana ye yatimi akoyanim ena no me wo ho na me mehwe ayi dwaboso MP or the say honorable Kwabrabinta Tando papa yetimi ado abimo abagin wo ayi bag mu edi aba adom TV edi aba ba ye introduction ama Ghana fo hu yembisa si wenum nyina ene emo ye da so kra ehwe aburuchirimam ena wode ba Ghana na Ghana ade ba kwa masidi hu ni Ghana ye ni yempe African made and I say ya ye made no yempe gisi ade ya try to made in Japan made in Korea and US and na ya na ye de yepe na yes ye penso so dia and ye be kwaso ye nkwa ma won and the papa na wo kasa with dream na mete wa mehwe no na wo ka ho asemi no na kyese papa ina nka onye nimdie bi a kyese nka obetumi akwa nanim a nka obetumi akwa nanim na mo especially ye Ghana no mesre ye mpanyifo se omumma ye made nu ehia yen Ghana made nu so she Ghana mpaboa na ye no krom ha ya ma ye feel interest se bibiara be wo Ghana no ya nya de ye twa ya ye ho ase na tinya boa ye muni asafo radi nyechuma yo wo nhira mo
on show so said the medical cano the battle line is not drawn for arms nyen tokobio anya asrafo nye pinchen is over here na empanyimfo bu baby to honum almost opese ode ade kwatri ana ode sie bibini a fagu ngomam emabuno yenta me kasa me ne obi e kasa omko efra me ogidi ewutie din na utinze mpanyimfo pa se bi o matena se din nchina che enim de ekoso experience de ekoso no hwe eyedan tomorrow will come whatever the case when tomorrow arrives some of us shall take the reins of governance and leadership in this country. Should we not be in the known? Should we be ignorant? Should we not be ready? We will be taken as puppets, as slaves, as conduits, and we will be used as well. And never koso. Na never na koso no. Mama adwumi de mahu say yenhyede nim enti ne fall victims. Anunti ena Monday to Friday bia yetnase 5:30 a.m. nkopem 10 a.m. na Lucky Herbal Hospital aboy chidom na Yeb Guest House aboy chidom Balakwa Greg Multimedia adwuma hodo boy chidom se yenante abrabonum na the missing element no yenkaka ya ho ena medical kan tomorrow will surely come whether prepared or be not prepared, tomorrow will come. And when tomorrow comes, one of us, some of us, will take the reins of leadership Should we get there empty-headed? Should we get there lacking knowledge? We definitely will perish. Should we get there ignorant? We will be taken for granted another century and over again. And also, we really appreciate my messages now. Nami adoma ochina anopa 5:30 a.m. Moni enantia ne dru ebra ye newspaper review na. Back in kind dia mama. And that was